Garland in the corner. He's got it.
Feed stands. Pow with the right hand.
Mitchell shakes. Up to the basket. And thunders it home. Oh! Mobley throws it down.
And Allen blocked the shot at the rim.
The Chase Down podcast is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost. There's no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. Well, the Cavaliers had two of their most encouraging wins of the season with road wins in Philadelphia. And then by the time I got back from Japan, just in time to lay a stinker. The Thunder blew them out at home on Martin Luther King Day, and of course Justin, the coward as he ever was. As I get back to town, he runs from the grind, but who never runs from the grind is Danny Cunningham over at Locked On Cavs in the Inside Shot. Danny, how you doing, brother?
I'm good. I'm starting to get worried that Justin is dodging me, but that's a different problem for a different day.
Some people would say that's a worry. Some would call it a blessing. It's your mileage may vary depending on how you feel. But thank you so much for coming on and helping me out and making it so I don't have to solo pod for 30 minutes while being hit with some of the worst jet lag of my life. I think I'm getting old, Danny, and it's affecting my ability to cope. Because normally it's like one night and I'm back, baby. Each direction. I was cooked the entire time I was in Japan, and I'm still cooked.
I mean, I feel like Japan to Ohio is a real rough jet lag. Like, am I going to call you young? No, I'm not. You are getting old.
Oh, no.
I'm not going to lie.
No.
But it's tough too. Like, give yourself a little bit of slack. That's not an easy trip to make.
I just used to weather it a little better than I did. It would be like 4 p.m. there every day, and I'd just be like falling asleep at my chair in the control room, which is not a good place to fall asleep from an optics perspective. But nevertheless, Cavs had played some good basketball while I was gone. They played some very bad basketball while I was gone in the form of that Utah loss. And then, of course, we come to today. So want to talk about everything. I don't really want to spend 40 minutes talking about how OKC beat the crap out of them. But we probably should talk about it at least a little bit. And I kind of want to start going wide angle first because last year, this game was the measuring stick game, both the one they won and then the one they got blown out on. And it was like the, are we the best team in the league measuring stick? And it wasn't that today. It didn't feel like that going in. And given the result, like, how do you feel about this? Is this a nasty reality check as to the state of the team right now to you? Is it, well, the Thunder are really good and played really good, so of course they're probably going to win against a banged-up Cavs team? Like, where did you land just on a vibe perspective after a loss like this?
So I think that the Cavs are not as bad, and I don't think that this loss, like the final score, I don't think was as indicative of what this game actually was. Like, this felt like a 20-point loss, not a 32-point loss, partially because the Thunder just decided not to miss any three-pointers in the fourth quarter. But
was it you that tweeted that the Cavs had made 7 threes in the game and the Thunder had hit 9 threes in the fourth?
I think they finished with 10. I think they hit one right after I pressed send. Like, it was absurd. That's part of the reason why. Like, the Cavs in no way, shape, or form deserved to win this game, or did I think we're going to come back and win this game. But they were down by single digits near the end of the third quarter. Like, it was not some blowout the entire time. But that said, Oklahoma City, I thought, looked like the best team in basketball, and the Cavs looked like a team that played a bad game. Like, those are two things that can both be true at the same time. I don't think the Cavs are as far away from the Thunder as the final score would have indicated from Monday, but I don't think that they're necessarily in the same tier as Oklahoma City is right now either. And I think that if you want to talk about this matchup, like, do the Cavs have to play perfect to beat the Thunder? Maybe not perfect, but they need a lot of the things that the guys out provide. They need a lot of what Darius Garland provides. They need Sam Merrill shooting. They need Max Strus in terms of ball movement and just player movement. Like, I think in their current form, they are a much easier team for a team like Oklahoma City to defend than the form that we think the Cavs will be if and when they ever get fully healthy.
They lost a 3-point line by 45 points in this game. And like, I gotta say, I tend to land with you. I think I guess I shouldn't be too surprised by people getting in their feelings, getting your teeth kicked in on a national TV stage. It sucks, but it's not like I've been immune to my own droughts as our and dips in the vibes as our DMs would attest from time to time when I've been a sad boy at points during the season. But I don't feel like this game felt like this condemnation of this version of the Cavs. To me, it felt like OKC is the best team in the league by just about every metric. Yes, they were missing folks. But I get that. I get you can say, oh, Cavs didn't have Darius, but they didn't have J-Dub. And it's well, they also started at a 75 win pace through 25 games without J-Dub. So Hartenstein's awesome, but honestly, Hartenstein kind of helps the Cavs. I think that matchup actually generally plays into their favor because it gives them someone to attack with their guards that they don't have otherwise. So and even Caruso leaves at half, he was having an awful game, by Alex Caruso standards. And it's no surprise that he had one of the more tepid plus minuses of the Thunder roster in his minutes. So I don't know, man. I didn't feel like this was as I mentioned, a condemnation. I do think the Cavs played very, very bad. And some of this is shot making. OKC, even outside of that fourth quarter, I thought their shot making was really on point in this game. Really, everyone except Caruso was killing you. Dort goes 5 of 6 from 3. Isaiah Joe goes 4 of 7, and his 2-point makes were also step back jumpers. I just feel like this version of the Cavs certainly wasn't going to keep it close with a Thunder team that was in form, which they were, by the way, coming off a very frustrating loss to Miami. That did not feel good to see 2 nights ago. If you were a Cavs fan, doesn't mean there's nothing to talk about, but I did just want to start with the wide angle stuff, just because I do think it matters. I do think it's of importance to say hey, I didn't feel like this was a sky is falling loss or a 2 steps forward, 3 steps back loss. I think they just lost. And this OKC team is going to beat you by 20 if you don't play well. That's just what they do.
I thought that the loss against the Jazz a week ago felt worse than this one. I thought that was more of an eye-opening loss than this one. I think there have been a couple of games like that. I will even go back to the game against Houston a couple of weeks ago where and the final score of that game was closer than this one because the Cavs in the fourth quarter of that game made it closer. But that to me felt oh man, is this an eyebrow-raising one? And then the Cavs responded the right way by beating San Antonio and by beating Phoenix. So the way I almost look at this, Carter, is what happens next is arguably more important than what happened Monday. And I do think one of the things that this team has done really well is when things go wrong, they have found a way to respond the right way. Think about that loss to Houston. They then beat San Antonio at full strength, and they beat Phoenix at almost full strength. The loss against Utah, they go into Philly and they beat the brakes off the Sixers on Wednesday and then win in really impressive fashion on Friday too. So how they look on Wednesday when they play Charlotte, and then on Friday when Sacramento comes to town, and Saturday in Orlando, those things, I think I can make the case in the wide angle view, as you put it, might be more important than this one game, albeit a bad loss. But I think those things will tell us more.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Again, not that there's nothing to talk about, and I do want to jump into it, which is, there's stuff to talk about this game and trends that I think you could probably define as troubling, and there's probably no more troubling trend than Donovan Mitchell. Just he can't figure this out, Danny. When it comes to being guarded by Lou Dort, he goes what did he end up? He was at 2 of 12 at one point.
5 of 18.
Oh, he was 5 of 18 tonight. Tony Pesta tweeted he was 3 of 15 and 3 of 16 in the 2 games against OKC last season. This is quite the trend, and it doesn't really feel like a lot of headway is being made in terms of solving this problem. I think they did okay early in the game of getting Dort switched off of him, at the expense of quite a few ticks of the shot clock. Like, what do you make of this at this point?
I think that Lou Dort he looks like a guy that was built in a lab to stop Donovan Mitchell. And there are not many guys, like if you want to look at this on the bright side, there are not many guys in the NBA that are built like Lou Dort with how strong he is, how thick he is, how aggressive he is. But this is, I think, absolutely an issue right now. I can't look at these last 3 games that he has played. And yeah, the Cavs have actually won one of those games, despite it. I believe Donovan only had 8 points in the Cavs win at home against the Thunder last year. But I look at this and say, if these two teams are to meet down the road, the Cavs have to figure something out that can make life easier for Donovan Mitchell. And maybe that something is just, hey, Darius Garland is out there and he can carry more of the offensive load, or Evan Mobley needs to be better than he was in this game offensively too. Although I do think there's a case he was the best starter for the Cavs in this game on Monday. But I look at this and I don't know what the answer is, because the Cavs are not a team that is built with great screen setters. I do think having another guy aside from Donovan Mitchell that can really penetrate teams defense or offensively the way Darius Garland can certainly helps. And I think the Cavs need to be a better passing team against Oklahoma City than they were. But Thunder do a great job with deflections. Like they are. I thought Monday's defensive effort from OKC, not just the Lou Dort stuff on Donovan Mitchell, but as a team, that was the best defense I've watched any team play all year against the Cavs. And I think it starts because they have somebody they can throw at Donovan that is a very unique and really talented defender.
Yeah, and I think it's no surprise that the Cavs offense has looked best against this OKC team when Darius has been around, just because you don't have to deal with it. At the end of the day, you can just say, hey, we're going to attack you from a different location because we haven't figured out how to crack the safe when it comes to Dort, but like we'll attack you elsewhere. And I do think even outside of that, OKC is a team that gets into rotation. They trust each other to get back. I think it's one of the most admirable things about the way they guard, as much as I get very frustrated by the physicality, and in my opinion, sometimes getting away with a little bit more than other teams are able to. I remain disgusted that they are not a top 5 fouling team. Last I checked, they weren't even above league average earlier in the season, which is crazy given how hard and physically they play. But that wine sesh aside, something I really appreciate is that they commit to making their guys make hard decisions and take risks, and kind of ask that they commit to getting back and challenging and making, like, this is a team, like there are teams like the Cavs defense at their best, even when they were a top 5 unit, they were built around not getting in rotation. Denver, this OKC team, they're like, we're fine. All of us are geniuses. We will rotate. We will get back. So if you have someone like Darius that's prodding from the strong side, maybe you can unlock Donovan a little bit on the weak side. But it just, and that's, I think, part of the reason why I'm just not that worked up about this loss. Like, I just don't really think there's enough entry points against this OKC defense with the personnel the Cavs had.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And the other thing that I keep coming back to is if the Cavs face Oklahoma City in the finals, like, these things will matter. But you know what? That means the Cavs are in the finals, and it will have mean that they improved from where they're at right now. And I think that's kind of a different problem for a different day, and the Cavs are just not at that point. Like, I don't want to say that there are not things to be concerned about, because they need somebody to pick up the slack offensively with Darius Garland. They need to find more guys that can find their way into the paint. But a lot of this, I think it's kind of put under a magnifying glass because they faced the best defense in basketball on Monday afternoon. Like, is it going to look like this against Charlotte on Wednesday? Probably not, I would guess. Like, is it going to look like this against Sacramento and Orlando, who's not been as good defensively this weekend? I just have my doubts about those things. Like, if this continues over the next week, then it's a different story. But based on this one game, like, I'm just not going to get worked up about it.
Yeah, it's almost hard to break down. It's like Donovan can't score on Dort, and the only people who that really matters for is Donovan Mitchell and Lou Dort. Like it almost feels like that duel just needs to be won by the Cavs at some point in some way. But until then, it's just hard to talk too much about it. Other than that, I did want to talk about a few other things before we pivot wide angle. Dean Wade made his return in this game, and 0 for 2 in 17 minutes, 2 rebounds, wasn't able to make much of an impact. I was a little surprised to see him get the start in this lineup, especially knowing who you're going up against. Just like I don't think this is a good matchup for Dean as an 8th or 9th man, let alone as a guy in the starting lineup. Were you surprised to see him get the start?
I wasn't terribly surprised to see him get the start because I do remember in the game they won last year, he had some success defending SGA. So I thought, okay, that's probably the direction they'll go.
So, sorry to interrupt, but didn't they start Tyson on Shea?
Yeah, they did not have Dean defend SGA. So I thought, okay, this certainly makes less sense. Like if they were going to have Dean defend SGA, I think, okay, I'm there. But not having him defend Shea, I thought, okay, maybe Craig would have made more sense here just because the Cavs can get out of sorts offensively. And, Jalen has been a really good offensive player, but I don't necessarily look at him as somebody that I want handling the basketball that much against Oklahoma City, where I think Craig Porter Jr. Would have brought a little bit more of that into the starting lineup and, defend, like, even with Dean on the floor, who obviously the team regards as a very good defender, Oklahoma City still scored on 8 of its first 10 possessions. I think they started out 8 of 9 from the floor and had a turnover mixed in somewhere there. So, like, they still did a lot of really good things, even with the Cavs seemingly picking to choose defense with their starting lineup choice as opposed to offense. So I wasn't surprised he got the start. I was a little surprised that he got the start and then not the defensive assignment that I thought he'd get.
Yeah, I just feel like I would have gone Craig there. I understand wanting to kind of juice your playmaking as much as possible, but like at the end of the day, I think against this OKC team, your best lineup is Craig, Donovan, Jalen, Evan, and Jarrett. With the personnel you had available, an important caveat there. Just because you look at the guys with the loosest handles on the team in DeAndre and Jalen and 9 turnovers. You need the ball handling juice, and more importantly, you need guys it's really hard to crack this OKC defense if you don't have 5 guys on the floor who are willing to shoot. And OKC just doesn't give up wide open looks if you're not getting that initial penetration. Like I know I don't remember I don't have the stats up for this year. Last year they gave up a bunch of open corner threes, but you got to get them in rotation first. And I just felt like Dean was just not the threat that they needed in those minutes.
And they close out too so hard, or at least they did on Monday.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed, and I don't know if this was something that was able to be picked up on television, but I certainly noticed watching it in person at the game, it felt like when the open threes were there, they weren't open for long.
No.
And this year, Jalen has shot the basketball at a level that I don't think anybody, other than maybe himself, thought that he could shoot the basketball from beyond the arc. And he's coming off of this incredible performance, 7 of 9 on threes against the Sixers on Friday night. He was sped up shooting. His shooting motion is not the quickest one in the world. And the Thunder sped him up. And I think that's part of the reason why he wasn't able to find success from the outside until the very end of the game when the Thunder didn't have the regulars on the floor anymore. So that was part of it too. It's the threes that were open were not open for very long.
Yeah. It was just tough. I mean, it's glad to see Dean back. I think he helps them in a lot of matchups. I just don't think this is one, especially when they're starved for offense. I think the math tilts a little bit if she's sharing the floor with Darius and Donovan at the same time. But again, I just think that lineup needed a little bit more ball handling juice to help ungunk things as best as you could. I do want to talk about the turnovers. I dinged Jalen and DeAndre, who I think had, of their 9 turnovers, I felt like 6 of them were just I didn't dribble tight enough and lost control of the ball, not even getting ripped. But turnovers have kind of been biting this team, dude. Through December 31st, they were 6th in the league in avoiding turnovers. They were averaging 13.6 per 100. They're 25th in the month of January, Danny. They're at 15.3 per 100. Does it matter to you? Do you think it's a blip? Do you think it's a problem? Do you think it's just noise? Where do you land on the turnover thing? Because that is like a big picture thing that we're seeing a lot.
I think it's somewhere between being a blip and mattering. And I think part of the reason why I'm there is the starting lineup the Cavs used today was their 24th different starting lineup. And it was a lineup that had not played together at all this year. And I think that there have been a lot of instances like that over the past month or so. The fact that they've already had more starting lineups this year than they did all of last year, and they've only played 44 games, I think that means that there hasn't been as much continuity, obviously, and I think that can lead to guys not necessarily always being on the same page. Now, there are some, like you mentioned with DeAndre, that he had with Jalen in this game. Like, those are not lineup based, but there are some where you can tell, okay, a guy's not on the same page as his teammate because he's not used to being in the spot that he's in. So I do think that is certainly part of it. I don't think that they're going to get back to being like top 5 in protecting the basketball, because I do think this offense might be kind of at its best when it is taking some risks when they're fully healthy with Darius Garland and when Sam is back with the movement and Max even too. But I also don't think they're going to be 25th. Like, I think ultimately they'll probably be somewhere around 15th. And I think that's okay with the firepower they should have when they're fully healthy.
So before I talk about, I'm harboring a theory, a very unfounded, unproven theory. But before I talk about that theory, I do want to just talk real quickly, give some credit to OKC on a night like tonight. Yeah, like, because I do think a lot of people rightfully grumpy about the unforced turnovers, and they should be. It's bad to throw the ball away and make dumb mistakes. However, this is kind of the thing that OKC does to teams. Because what you see a lot with when teams go against this OKC team is they're so good at pressuring the ball. A lot of times teams' answer is to slow down. And then they end up not being able to get the ball across half court, not getting into their set till there's 13, 14, 15 seconds left on the shot clock. And then they really tighten it, and then they rip you at the end anyway because you ran out of time trying to execute. So I think the Cavs, at least early on in this game, when I thought the worst turnovers were happening, were attacking. But like, this is the problem: is you either slow yourself down so much against them that they kill you, or you speed yourself up at a point where you're not very comfortable, and then you start making these errors of trying to force the ball forward when you're not on the same page as your teammates, and everyone's kind of operating at a slightly different rhythm. So I do want to provide that caveat that I think part of, like, it, not all unforced errors are the same, I guess, is what I'm trying to argue there. However, my macro theory, Danny, and I'm curious what you think about this, I think they're turning the ball over because they're adjusting to playing hard again. And I think there is a level of, like, so they're in the middle, they go through the beginning of the season, and I think we all kind of would agree the intensity on a night-to-night basis really hasn't been there. And what I'm seeing, like that Philly game, for example, where I would not accuse them of playing unfocused basketball. I think they were really trying to win that game. I think they were pretty together in what they were doing, and they had 19 turnovers in that game. And I think when you're going through this process of ramping yourself back up to the speed that you're supposed to be at, you're spending more energy getting yourself into gear than you would if you'd been at this gear all season. And what that leads to is that lack of connection from time to time where, I got to move. I got to play with pace. I got to hit this hit ahead pass, or I got to get this ball in bounds, or whatever it may be. But the other guy isn't quite at your wavelength yet because, again, you're all ramping up at every individual kind of has their own tempo to get up to that level when you're not already there as a team. And that's why we're seeing more mistakes in the month of January. Completely unfounded. No reporting on this. Your thoughts?
I think that's a good theory. That is a theory I want to ask around about. I had not thought about that, but I do think it makes some sense. Like, this is a group that, like, do I think they played a full 48 minutes of focus and intensity against OKC? No, I don't. But I also don't think that this was a game they lost because they didn't play hard enough. Like, there are games on the, like, if you go back and look at their schedule, there are certain losses I can point at and say, if they play harder, I think they win this game. OKC on Monday was not one of them. But I do think that is if nothing else, it's interesting because there has been, to your point, an uptick in the intensity level of this team. There's been an uptick in the focus level of this team and the speed at which this team is trying to play. And I think that has led to a lot of good things. Like, I do think even with the increased turnovers, like offensively, again, Monday notwithstanding, they've been really good since December 22nd. So over the last month or so. So I do think there could be something to that. Like, I have heard some wild conspiracy theories in my day, and I don't think that's one of them.
It's silly because it's not like, it's one of those soft takes, that I think like and it's like relating to my own time when I'm like, when I've played pickup, I'm like, okay, I'm really gonna lock in, and you kind of can get over your skis a little bit, and and it's hard for these teams to, like, as this team is to kind of find themselves as they're all getting in sync. And Danny, teams move fastest when everyone's in sync. Zoom Workplace keeps meetings, chat, docs, and more together so your work flows like a perfect play. Keep work moving and zoom ahead with Zoom Workplace. All right, I want to move off the Thunder game, and I want to talk because this is not a daily podcast, unlike the Lord's work you're doing over on Locked On Cavs, and we have not talked about the Jalen Tyson game yet. He goes absolutely ballistic in a game that the Cavaliers really needed to win on Friday on the road. Right after you'd kind of kicked the crap out of Philly, they came back with a vengeance, and he won them that game. And I hate to do the generic praise segment, but like, Danny, how freaking good is this guy?
He is so much better than I thought he'd be because of the shooting. Like, I came into the season, and I don't remember exactly where you were at on Jalen Tyson before the season, Carter. But I came into the season thinking, you know what, Jalen's going to do the little things really well. He's going to rebound. He's going to cause some chaos defensively. He's going to be able to, be a good secondary playmaker at times. But I had a lot of questions about the shot. And I know he didn't have a great shooting day on Monday, but going 7 of 9 from beyond the arc against Philly is not something I saw in the cards for Jalen Tyson at any point in this season. The fact that he's shooting almost 50% on threes is not something I saw in the cards. But the thing to me that was maybe the most impressive part of that performance was he goes for a career high 39 points. I will never know what that feels like, but I imagine it was a pretty sweet feeling for him. And he finds himself with the game on the line and the basketball in his hands and an opportunity to go win the game. And he makes the right play and finds Evan Mobley for the game-winning dunk. And in that moment, if Jalen Tyson had tried to take a floater over Joel Embiid and Paul George and make or miss, like, not a soul in that building could have blamed Jalen Tyson for that shot. But instead, he made the right play, and it won the game for the Cavs. And that, to me, just shows a level of basketball IQ, a level of basketball maturity, a level of just, like, this guy is a winner type of stuff that I came away from that game so impressed with.
Yeah, I totally agree, but I do want to yes and add a little bit to that conversation, which is that I thought the coolest thing about it, obviously the unselfishness, but like, he catches the ball and just immediately he just plays basketball in the moment. Like, he's not playing the moment, he's playing the game. And like, sometimes we want guys to play the moment, right? Like, sometimes you need that. But like, I think this Cavs team can, on occasion find themselves. I think they're just such a smart, cerebral bunch of guys that they kind of overthink some of this stuff. And sometimes you'll see a guy catch the ball with an advantage, freeze, and be like, I got to go find Donovan. Like, because it's the end of the game, so it's Donovan's job to win us the game. Yeah. And like, again, sometimes you need that. Like, you don't want guys going rogue. But I'm going to quote a guy in our Discord that I am always very fond of. I've quoted him on here a lot. DH over in the Discord said, quote, "He just played the game as it existed in front of him, which is a problem with this team sometimes." And I think that level of presence is something, especially the Cavs role players over the last years, we really haven't seen that. Like, one of the reasons I think I fell in love with Ty Jerome last year was he had that. Like, he had this, I don't need to worry about hierarchy when I'm out there. Like, there are times where, like, the ball will find our best players, but if I have the ball and I'm in a position to attack, it's my job to attack. And, like, I don't know if the Cavs have had a tremendous amount of those. So I just wanted to, like, obviously it's great that he was unselfish, but I kind of don't even think, Danny, he was in a mindset where he was like, I'm going to decide to be unselfish. Does that make sense?
Right. No, absolutely it does. And that's why I think it was impressive, because I think that he didn't have to think in that moment. And I think that shows a comfort level that is rare for a guy in his position. Because I know there are outliers to every rule, but how frequently do you see young guys in the NBA that really have an impact on winning? Guys that are in Jalen's position, and I realize that he's in his second year and he's not a rookie, but he's a first-year rotation player. How frequently, or I guess infrequently, we see guys that are first-year rotation players, just like, you're kind of along for the ride. You're kind of not somebody that is helping us decide games. Every now and then there's going to be a blip where you have a really good game and a team wins because of it, but Jalen, I think, pretty consistently has been a winner this year. And I kind of have gone up and down the roster with this exercise and just be like, where would the Cavs be without blank? And I mean, Donovan Mitchell is where would the Cavs be without Donovan Mitchell? And we don't want to know the answer to that. But it's not too far away. It's like, where would the Cavs be without Jalen Tyson's performance this year? Like, he has been the brightest of bright spots. And I think that's why, while the 39 points is such an eye-popping number that immediately catches your eyes, and it should, but that's why I think if you've been watching this team, and more specifically Jalen, all year, you don't come away from that game on Friday and be like, man, I am stunned Jalen Tyson had a great game. Like, that's just not the way you're thinking, because he has been this guy, maybe not to that extreme efficiency level, but he's been a guy that has impacted winning all year. And that's why I just don't think it's the craziest thing he had a great game.
No, I didn't sit here thinking I was blown away by the shot making, but I didn't feel like this was a thing that shouldn't have happened. And sometimes you have those games where it's like, that guy was so, like, for example, another amazing moment. You remember when Ricky Rubio killed the Knicks and hit like 9 threes? That's that shouldn't have happened game. Like, like, I love Ricky, but like, he would probably tell you he would never have another, like, even if he hadn't gotten hurt, he was never going to have another game like that the rest of his life as a scorer. I could see Jalen score. I mean, we've seen Jalen get dance near 30 multiple times, and guys who can get near 30 can get to 39. So, like, obviously an unbelievable game. The efficiency was amazing. I think the other things I wanted to hit on with Jalen before we wrap the generic praise of Jalen Tyson segment is I really want to shout out his finishing, which has, I thought, gotten better and better throughout the season. My biggest concern with Jalen actually has not been the shot, even though, it's a funky looking shot, but I do generally trust that, he shot well last year. I mean, for a frame of reference, something that's always given me pause with him as a prospect is the vertical pop, especially off 1 foot. He's a below the rim finisher, despite being, 6'6" and a pretty good athlete that's got a few really nice dunks under his belt. But like, if he's going up in traffic, generally, he is scoring with craft, with floaters and things like that. And it's really hard to be an efficient player at the rim if that's your layup package. Like, I think about like Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder is another guy, similar size, obviously a little bulkier, but similar height. Like, that's a below the rim finisher. And his margin for error as a finisher was very, very low because he didn't have the kind of touch. He kind of had to have a clean angle to the square to be able to finish. He's at 56% from 2 on his 2-point field goals. And like, if he's able to keep it around there, like, he can afford a little cool off from 3. And like, that is what I find the most encouraging. Because do I think Jalen's going to be a 50% 3-point shooter for the rest of his career? It'd be nice, but like, I don't think it's going to happen. But like, the fact that he's not wholly reliant on that, and because he's shooting so well, and that's why that end, like, the shooting was the skeleton key, because you need to generate space if you're not going to be a great shooter. And so he's got guys closing out on him hard now. I'm sorry, if you're not going to be a great finisher, you need to be able to generate clean angles. So he's got guys closing out hard on him, which means he's able to get a step or two into the paint, relatively with a clean angle. He uses his frame and balance to make sure he's on he's got 2 feet under him when he's doing these floaters and these scoop layups, and that is really, really cool to see.
And I think one of the other things to put a bow on this is how well he's operated in the short roll, like how reliable that floater from like 8 feet has become. Oh, and that's not an easy shot, partially because it's a very awkward distance for guys, but he's become very reliable setting a screen. And we have seen him on the floor with Donovan a lot this year, and Donovan has been getting blitzed pretty frequently. We've seen Donovan be able to get the basketball to him in the short roll, where it's basically become a 4-on-3 for the Cavs, and he makes the right decision, which more often than not, when he's out there with Jared Allen or with Evan Mobley, the opposing big is going to try and stay attached to those guys because they want to make Jalen Tyson beat them, which, I mean, let's face it, that should be what defenses are doing against the second-year player, as opposed to guys that have made all-star teams that are the bigs for the Cavs. And the way that he has converted those opportunities into points so frequently this year, I think the first time I really felt super impressed with it, go back to the game on Christmas Day against the Knicks, where that third quarter, I think he had 11 points, and like 8 of them came on floaters, and they were blitzing Donovan. He was just floater after floater after floater, and that's a big reason why the Cavs have looked so good, is because of his performance, not just beyond the arc, but in a few different areas.
And the last thing I'll say to YesN on this before we talk a little bit wider about Jalen's contributions, it also allows, especially when the Cavs are playing one big lineups, this is not a team that overwhelms teams with their athleticism. So him catching the ball in the short roll allows Evan or Jarrett to hang out in the dunker spot and have that kind of gravity that way. Because right now, something I've seen a lot when teams do blitz and Evan or Jarrett catches the ball in the short roll, but the Cavs are playing one big, they kind of have to score because like they have to either score or take a dribble or two and immediately like put rip pressure on the rim. And if they're not able to, because hands, the defense rotates well, or someone comes up and meets them, or whatever it may be, like that can short circuit a Cavs set because there's not enough pressure along the baseline. So Jalen occupying that role lets those guys be there to stop the help from coming and give Jalen a very, very clean look because the low man doesn't come up. So you're absolutely right that he's been great out of the short roll. And I think, again, he's just got a lot of tools in the tool belt. Like, this is exactly what you dream of when you draft a guy that's kind of a do-it-all, limited athlete, a little bit of an older prospect. This is what you dream of, is that he does find a way to make... Because, like, a lot of those guys that get drafted, like, yeah, they're do-it-alls in college, but actually they can only do, like, one or one and a half of those things at the pro level. Feels like Jalen is at converting most of them, and that is a huge difference. Which takes me to my question, Danny. We saw that Max Strus was getting some very, very light on-court work. That was reported by yourself and a few others. Should Jalen just hold on to the starting spot the rest of the year?
I think it depends what Max looks like when he gets back. So like, I know that's such a cop out of an answer. I would like to see Jalen in the starting lineup until that happens. And I imagine when Max does get back from this foot injury, like, he's not going to be playing 35 minutes a night right away. Like, he's going to be on some sort of minutes restriction, I would imagine. Like, you don't bring a guy back that hasn't played all season, just say, hey, go play 40 minutes tonight.
Easy to keep guys on minutes restrictions. Their minutes managed if they don't start, because you're not burning those 8 minutes to start the first and third, no matter what.
Correct. I mean, think about what we saw with Evan when he came back from his calf injury on Christmas, coming off the bench in that game, coming off the bench against Houston as well. So, like, I do think that the bench makes sense for him. I would keep Jalen in the starting lineup until that happens. I do think when Max is in the starting five, the connector type role that he plays is a little bit different than who Jalen is. And I think that the added movement, because I don't look at Jalen as this off-ball mover, and I do think one of the issues with the Cavs offensively can be that they can get a little bit stagnant at times, and I think Max can solve some of that. But I do think until then, because I'm not sure that I love Sam with the starting five. I think
it's just a little small.
Yeah, it's just a little small. I think to your point about the minute stuff, I think having Dean come off the bench maybe makes a little bit more sense there. But I would go Jalen until Max gets back and back up to speed. But I think ultimately what might even matter a little bit more than just picking Jalen here is sticking with somebody and trying to find some consistency, because they've had so many different starting lineups. Like, it is the fact that they are above 500 with the same number of starting lineups as the Indiana Pacers have had this year is sort of a remarkable accomplishment. Like, they've had 24 different combinations start a game. They had 23 last year, and 3 of those last year were in the last 3 games of the regular season, when they sat starters against the Pacers, sat bench players against, I believe, the Knicks, and then sat everybody against the Pacers again. So I just think kind of picking one direction and sticking with it for a little while would do well for this team.
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, they've had a lot of starting lineups, no doubt. Not every single one of those is because someone got hurt that was a starter. You know, Kenny has really been playing with the starters a lot. You know, obviously, famously got lit up for that first Minnesota game where he starts the 3 guards, Craig, Donovan, Darius. But even in this game, he could have rolled back the same starters from that second Philly game, and chose not to. You know, chose to put Dean in and play another relatively untested 5-man group together. So I agree with you. I think this is a team that needs continuity. Even if it has to be generated a little bit inorganically, you know, like, so even if you kind of want to start Max, like, I think there's some value to roll with the 5. Jalen's numbers, I don't have the numbers up right this second, but I think Jalen's lineup data with the core 4 has been pretty good this season for the 6 seconds they've all played together. And I will say this team has been getting killed in the second quarter and at the start of the fourth quarter. And I think there's a lot of value in saying, hey, we can bring Sam, Max, DeAndre, and Dean off the bench and playing against second units. Obviously, the jury's still out on whether DeAndre is going to regain his form, so bit of a caveat there. But, like, I think Sam and Max, because I think the second units are the ones where I actually feel the lack of juice the most, the lack of continuity the most. I think that's why we're seeing those second quarters go so bad for this Cavs team. So, like, I think there's a lot of value in kind of in letting that continuity happen the way it's happening. And I just think Jalen's earning it too. It just sends a good message to the team that, hey, if you're gonna play like this, you get to start, and maybe in crunch time or as the games ramp up in their importance. You know, he becomes the Keith Bogans Memorial starter where he starts but plays 20 minutes. You know, like, you can do that. It's not a crazy thing, but I think the continuity and guys just knowing where their minutes are going to come from on a night-to-night basis would go a long way. Let's talk about more injury stuff, Danny, because the party never stops. Obviously, the Cavs lost Darius and Sam. Darius hurts his other big toe. Not the one that was surgically repaired this summer, which is like good news and frustrating. It's like, God, man, can he have one good foot? And then Sam re-injures his hand that he had sprained and missed, I want to say, 14 games earlier in the season. Cavs released a statement, I want to say it was yesterday, but time is a flat circle and I'm so jet-lagged and travel days are confusing, that he would be reevaluated in 7 to 10 days. Forever caveat, that does not mean he will be back in 7 to 10 days. That means he will be reevaluated in 7 to 10 days to see how that toe is healing. After last year's debacle, I think in the postseason, I think the Cavs are going to err on giving him as much time as possible to be on at least one good foot by the end of the year. What are you hearing? What are you thinking about Darius? Does it feel like a relief that it's the other foot and that it's not a something that's going to like need immediate surgery or sideline him for a month?
Yeah, I think there are a few things that are just worth noting here. One, the fact that this was an injury to his right foot as opposed to his left foot, I think, is, as you put it correctly, it's frustrating, but also it's a relief. And I look back to last year because we all think of Darius's toe injury that happened at the end of Game 2 against the Miami series and totally cost the Cavs in the postseason. But it was an injury that he was playing through in the regular season. I believe he hurt it in March, and ultimately he played through it. He missed technically one game because of it, but that was a game where, Evan didn't play and Donovan didn't play and Max didn't play. I believe it was the first of the two Pacers games at the end of the season. So I think that was a game that Darius was probably going to sit anyways. So he really didn't have time to let that rest. And then it was a re-aggravation in the postseason. And I think that giving him some time, and I can't sit here and say, yes, Darius Garland could play tomorrow. I don't know that. But I think giving him some time to let this properly heal is the best course of action. And I thought something was interesting too, because on the ESPN broadcast of the Cavs game on Wednesday night against Philadelphia, the broadcast team made a mention that Darius told them he was at about 70% with his left toe. Obviously, he spoke with them prior to the injury to his other foot. But I think if he has a week or 2 weeks off here and 7 to 10 days reevaluated, as you said, does not mean return to play. But let's say he misses the next 6 or 7 games for the Cavs and returns at some point when they're out west early in February. That also, the hidden benefit to that is it gives that other foot a little bit of a rest too. It gives the left foot, the left toe, which has obviously
I was thinking about that too, brother.
It's been something that has slowed him down. And I think over the last few weeks, he's looked so much better than he did at the start. I think the burst has been back. I think the shiftiness, the stop-start, all that stuff has been back. But I think that this time off will only aid in that too. So as long as this injury is not as bad as the one on the other foot, and I believe it is not, I think the Cavs will be okay here.
Yeah, I think so too. I thought all those things. Obviously, it really stinks because he put together some of his best basketball of the season. Looked like a guy who was like, I've said this a few times, Danny. I feel like with Darius more than any other player, I feel like and this is just me, I feel like I have the memory of a fish. Like I forget how impactful he is at his best when he's playing for an extended stretch that he's not at his best. I feel like I like forget it more with him than any other player. And I think it's just because of how singular his game is. Like it's not like it's just like, oh, well, he just can't shoot. Because like even when he has bad shooting games, when he's at his best, he's bananas. He's so helpful to this team. And his impact extends so far beyond himself that I think his impact is just kind of like more nebulous and like harder to pin down to like a single thing. So like when he's not at his best, it's harder for people to remember, at least for this particular people sharing the podcast with you. So like seeing him really find his form, I think really was important. So hopefully it's a setback that has some ancillary benefits, as you mentioned. And then correct me if I'm wrong. Kenny said he does not expect Sam's hand to be a long-term issue this time around, correct?
Correct. Yes, that's what he told us on Sunday after practice. Obviously, he missed 14 games. It was a little over a month the first time that this happened. It was a difficult injury to deal with. It was one where, Sam couldn't catch a pass or dribble a basketball for like 3 or 4 weeks. I do not believe this is as bad as that is. I don't expect him to miss the next month of games. Like I would imagine the plan is for Sam to be back on the floor probably before Darius, which I think like this team does miss Sam when he's not out there. So we will have to wait and see. But I don't think that they're as worried about Sam now or expect it to linger the same way that it did last time.
All right. Well, it like I do think it really matters. I think this team like it just looks a lot different when they don't have Darius, Sam, and Max. Like there's 3 of their best movement shooters, 3 of their best off-ball guys they have by a country mile, frankly. So really, really hope to see them come back. Last thing we'll talk about, and I saved it for the end because it's kind of a bummer. Lonzo has kind of found himself back in the rotation as the team's gotten hurt. The minutes are just going really rough, Danny. Do you think that they just need to be allocating all those minutes to, the Tyrese Proctors and the Craig Porters of the world at this point?
I think we're getting close to it. I do. Like, Lonzo still does some things okay, but the shot is so broken right now that it's tough to have him on the floor. Like, he went, I believe, 1 of 4. He only played in the first half on Monday. I actually thought on Wednesday, in the 30-point win over the Sixers, Lonzo looked okay. I know he hit 3 threes and 2 of those came in mop-up duty at the end, but I thought, this looks better than it had at any point.
Yeah, he had 4 assists, 4 rebounds, was getting off the ball.
Yeah. And then on Friday, I didn't think he looked very good, and I was hopeful after 2 days off, after Saturday and Sunday off, that Monday would look closer to Wednesday, but Monday looked pretty similar to Friday. And it's just, this has not gone the way that I expected it to. I thought he was going to be an awesome pickup for them. I thought he was going to be a great ball mover, somebody that can knock down open shots. And unfortunately for the Cavs, it just hasn't come to fruition.
Yeah, and I think just because Tyrese is showing you stuff, I mean, he was so good. In one of those Philly games, I want to say, where he had, I want to say it was like 13 points in like 11 minutes. And by the way, that has not been the case with Tyrese, and something I think is important to note, because as Justin and I are so excited about him that we need to like remind ourselves, like the percentages have not lined up with the way I feel like he's playing. He hasn't shot that well. But he's still just shooting better than this, and he's getting guarded. So then Craig, I just think, has also really helped unlock a lot of stuff with the hustle, with the getting downhill and things like that. So I think for now, that's just kind of where I'm at. I thought, Lonzo kind of played his way back to the rotation, giving them some good minutes against the Nuggets at the beginning of the month, but it kind of feels like it's dipped right back down, unfortunately. So, nothing much to say there other than, like, it's obviously a bummer. I think we all, he's one of the best feel-good stories of the league, and just being able to be back out there. But I just think for what this team needs, I'd probably be looking more at Proctor and getting him the reps that he needs. Because, like, I'll tell you what, just watching him against OKC, I was like, oh, man, this feels a lot for Mr. Proctor. But, I think they kind of had to turn to him.
Yeah, I think that the reps that he will get with Darius out will be very valuable to him. I'm not saying that we should, because listen, the guy was picked 49th overall. Like, expecting anything in terms of helping a team win from the 49th overall pick as a rookie is wildly unfair. Tyrese Proctor has already, I think, exceeded what anyone's realistic expectations of him as a rookie should have been. But I think that the reps that he should be getting with Darius out for the next week to 2 weeks could be really, really valuable for his development.
Yeah, that's just that. And I think that's probably the tiebreaker here is, like, I don't think this team is going to be in a spot where they're going to be asking Lonzo to play for them in a playoff series if they've got their core group together and available. But I could see Tyrese Proctor playing for them in a playoff series in 2026, 27. So, so that leads me to feel like you should be maybe a bit more future thinking with the spot. So, Danny, thank you so much for coming on. Really, really appreciate having you while Justin's away and helping me navigate a very sleepy podcast for your boy. Danny, where can people find your work?
You can check me out over at Locked On Cavs, wherever you get your podcasts, and The Inside Shot, where I write about the Cavs just about every single day.
Guys, if you don't subscribe to The Inside Shot, you are not properly consuming media as a Cavs fan. I'll tell you what, Danny, before I go, I'll glaze you, as the children like to say, and say I had pretty much stopped reading written Cavs content for the last couple years. It's just kind of like, especially like things like gamers and recaps, like those kind of like had fallen out of my, just as I've gotten closer and closer to the team, doing more post game pods and things like that. The Inside Shot has made me revisit my Cavs consumption habits, and now I read just about every single article you post because you do such great work.
Well, I very much appreciate that, man. Thank you. Means a lot.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Really, really appreciate you. We will be back on Wednesday, post game after the Charlotte game. Don't sleep on Charlotte. That's a very, very good team that is playing way better than you think they are. And the Cavs should know that because I believe the Charlotte Hornets beat them earlier in the year. Again, I'm tired. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books for the Chase Down Pod. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, go Cavs.